It's February 28th. Let's take a look at what's going on in Ukraine in the war. Now, Bakhmut, this has been a place the Russians have been pounding on the front door for months. And in the last couple days, we've seen a move of Wagner group forces into Yahidna. If I zoom in enough, I'll get the name. There it is, Yahidna. And they moved in here in this largely built up area. There's a rail line that comes down, and that was the first move into this, getting in contact with the city. But right over here, this is where there's been a lot of claims of Russian movement. The last couple days, Bill bloggers have been claiming that Wagner forces have moved in here. And this is very troubling because in the whole situation, this is the route out, right, from Kremov out of Bakhmut. And if we zoom in here, you can see this is just about a mile. And this is largely open terrain, right, which is kind of weird in that the Russians have been using these dismounted infantry tactics and have been making very slow gains, more in built-up areas where they have a little cover and concealment. Here, they're more or less out in the open, although there is a rail line that runs along here that seems to be their southern border, at least in ISW's map, and that is, gives them a little concealment. But this is very troubling, right? This is what could cut the route in and out of the city and could trap the Ukrainians there. Russian mill bloggers talking a lot about that, right? How much is there? It's hard to say. Another thing, and it at least has the status of being confirmed by ISW, and ISW will change things from yellow to red when they have some confirmation, usually social media posts showing fighting going on or pictures of, that people post of, them by signs, and they they locate it, right? They geolocate it. And so here we've got a penetration into Bakhmut itself. And so we have street fighting here, and that is penetrating into the city. So really in Bakhmut, the Ukrainian commander has three things to really worry about. We have this latest penetration just this last day. They have the Russians coming in through Yahidna. And most troubling is this, to what extent the Wagner group forces are there, this is what threatens the route in and out of the city. So the Ukrainian commander is got to be very busy, very concerned about this. As I look at it, though, the Ukrainians have done a good job in this war. The commander has got time to react to things because the Russians move at a slow pace. The Ukrainian commander, I'm guardedly optimistic that this is somebody who knows what he's doing. And we can find out that that's not the case later. After all, war is a contest in blunders. And certainly, this is when things get crazy, right? As the Russians are moving in, if the Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut are decisively engaged with the Russians, it can be difficult to pull out, right? It's difficult to disengage and to coordinate people. When you're in close contact, you start pulling out, they follow you. Usually you need some help to disengage, either another unit in Overwatch or artillery fire. And, so it takes a lot of coordination, and a lot of things can go wrong, especially as you get into, fighting in a lot of different directions. So this is kind of crisis time in Bakhmut, right? This is, at least from here, right? We're looking at reports that are, this is yesterday's information. But this is the best we can do from a distance, or best I can do. Now, meanwhile, outside Bakhmut, and this is really important, right? This is all part of a Russian offensive, right? And if I've zoomed out enough here, and so Bakhmut was there. The Russians are pushing along several fronts. They've been pushing through Crimea to Liman, right? And this is Luhansk. And they've been pushing along this line very hard. They've also been pushing down by Avdiivka and Vuhledar, where you may have heard. And, not much success here. So just taking a quick look here, if we zoom in, right, this is Crimea down here. This is Kupiansk up here. Here's Svatov. And this is what the Ukrainians and their most, the Ukrainian military has been saying. Hey, the Russians have been putting a lot of effort into this, and and we see elite forces, airborne and armor, things the Russians don't have much of that usually indicate this is where they are serious, right? And they've been pushing along this front. Not much has been happening. Meanwhile, just quickly, I want to show you back down here, Avdiivka, right? This is a place that the Russians have been attacking. They've been making attacks on this little town here. And here's Donetsk city, right? So this is right the heart of the Donetsk province. Avdiivka, look at this black line here, is the original border before the war, right? The Russians have made, now they're claiming to have made these minor gains, but really this place has been holding like a rock. And so they've been, really not getting very far. And you would have expected them to get a little ways here. And of course, there is Vuhledar, where we get constant attacks. We've had attacks, we've had failures. And so this is an area where that has sucked up and, destroyed largely. The fighting here has destroyed two basically Russian Marine brigades, their naval infantry. And so, again, they keep pushing, but they keep failing. So overall, we have to say, if we pull out and look at, more or less where the front is going, we're seeing not a lot of movement from the Russians. And they are, the Ukrainians are on the back foot in Bakhmut, but overall, they're holding the line. And we should always remember the southern offensive, right? The counteroffensive that's much promised. All roads lead to Melitopol, right? And I think this is where eventually the Ukrainians are going to want to go.